Hey guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This video is about your natal moon in Scorpio. Might also resonate if you have your moon in the 8th house. So, little disclaimer here, I do have my natal moon in the 8th house. It's a Gemini moon in the 8th house. I just like to let you guys know because of course that gives me a little bit of extra insight, but it also gives me a little bit of extra bias, right? Whenever we're talking about a placement that we share or is very similar to our own, it's more expertise, but also more bias. So just take this as it resonates, as always. So anyway, I've been focusing these videos on the emotional processing aspect of your natal moon. And that's a pretty good one for Scorpio moon because this one is all about intense emotional purges. And I mean, it's not that everything about Scorpio moon is about purging, but when we're talking about emotional processing, how you're moving through your emotions, how you experience your emotions, how you release your emotions, there's with a Scorpio moon or an 8th house moon, there's definitely an emphasis on purge. And it's about allowing emotions to come to that moment of climax, come to that moment of intensity, and to experience very intense emotions. This can give Scorpio moon a very roller coaster ride like inner experience, right? Scorpio moon, very, very, very intense emotions. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your emotions are crazy, crazy intense all of the time, right? You can definitely go through periods of tranquility, of peace, of kind of even emptiness, right? Some Scorpio moons, definitely not all, because it depends on you as a person in general, but you might really enjoy or benefit from mindfulness meditation, right? Where you're finding the emptiness because that neutral place, that state of being in the observer state can really bring you relief from the kind of constant waves and ups and downs of your inner emotional landscape. And with the Scorpio moon, there can be the calm before the storm and the eye of the storm, and then of course the nice clear day after the storm. So yes, Scorpio moon, your emotions can be stormy, right? There can be severe weather on the horizon, on the forecast, but it also comes with those moments of calm, right? Calm before the storm, the eye of the storm. And I would say there's actually quite a bit of potential here for Scorpio moons who really learn to master their own emotional waves, to really master that place of being the eye of the hurricane, right? To be in the eye of the hurricane. Because sometimes it can be like, you can kind of develop this attitude where it's like, oh, you think that's an intense emotional experience? You should try being in my head. You probably couldn't handle it, right? Because of the intensity of the emotions. And this can really give Scorpio moon a kind of cool type of edge, right? Scorpio moon, maybe in high school was like into goth stuff, might be into metal, really intense music, really intense experiences. And I mean, but what intense means for you is going to vary depending on the rest of your chart, right? Because of course, um, if you tend to be more reclusive, more introverted, and more like hypersensitive to your environment and hypersensitive to other people's emotions and other people's like the sounds and energies around you, right? You might not necessarily love to go out there and do super like adventurous or very intense activities, right? But that doesn't mean you're not having an intense experience. That doesn't mean that you're not seeking peak experiences, right? Seeking peak experiences. Scorpio is essentially craving for those peak experiences. And what a peak experience means for you is it's gonna depend on so much more than just, it's not like I can say all Scorpio moons have this type of peak experience, but it's that shared trait of looking for the intensity. So for some Scorpio moons, it might be through hiking, getting on the top of the mountain, right? Or longboarding down a hill really, really fast. Anything that brings that rush, right? There can be an element of rush, but that's definitely not going to resonate for all Scorpio moons because some Scorpio moons, especially if you happen to be, say, just to throw it out there, like a Cancer Sun Scorpio moon, you might, those emotional experiences and those intense experiences, those peak experiences that you're looking for might play out more interpersonally, let's say, because a huge factor of Scorpio moon is that you're going to be looking for intimate experiences, intense intimacy, right? Intense intimacy. And yeah, that can definitely be sexual, right? There's definitely an element to sex and sexuality whenever we're talking about Scorpio. And what that means for you is, of course, personal, but you could be looking for intense emotional experiences that play out with a sexual dynamic. That's absolutely on the table here. But also, of course, it's not all sexual, right? You can be looking for intense and satisfying, like, spiritual experiences where you really become intimate with another soul, and that can absolutely be platonic or in a family relationship. So emotional intensity and those peak experiences can absolutely come through just interpersonal intimacy, really wanting to feel that soul to soul connection and crawl inside somebody else's head and really figure out what makes them tick. That can be very, very satisfying. And of course, Scorpio moons very, tend to be interested in things like psychology and philosophy and astrology, anything that helps you figure out other people and just helps you explore the human psyche. Very, very compelling and interesting to Scorpio moon. Okay, but returning to the whole thing of emotional processing for Scorpio moon, this is where it is possible for Scorpio moon to kind of attempt in some ways to repress or control their emotions, um, because they can be so overwhelming and they can almost seem damaging, right? And I would be surprised to find a Scorpio moon who doesn't have any memories of ever, even, so much as once in their life, having some kind of experience of going, oh, I wish I hadn't let my emotions get the better of me. I wish I hadn't expressed them so vehemently, so intensely, because, I just kind of let my emotions like flood out and spill out all over me. And, sometimes there can be feelings of, oh, I wish I'd handled that better. I wish I'd controlled myself better, right? Because the emotions can be so intense. And that's, something we tend to have more when we're younger, because of course we grow and we mature and we get better at managing our emotions. So there can definitely be that kind of impulse to try and lock down and control the emotions, but that is not gonna be the method that is most beneficial to Scorpio moon, because those intense emotions, they must be released, because we're talking about the scorpionic power here to transform and become something new, to transform and release. And the imagery of the phoenix here is really significant, right? Because this is Scorpio. There can be, as we're processing those emotions, there can be almost that intense feeling of hitting bottom, right? That intense feeling of hitting bottom. It can be a feeling of bottoming out, or even of dying, or of giving up entirely, or of exploring the depths of some kind of emotional experience all the way to its uttermost extreme, right? This is where extremes, the extremities of emotions comes in here. So, of course, these kind of extremes, they are available to everyone, but somebody with Scorpio placements, and specifically, especially a Scorpio moon, is going to be more inclined to be experiencing these. So, the depths of despair and the peaks of wrath, right? I like to use the word wrath, not just rage, but wrath. This is more than simple anger or simple rage that everybody kind of feels. This can be when the wrath becomes a living, breathing thing, like an all-consuming thing, right? With the Scorpio moon, the emotions can become all-consuming, and they can even be frightening to the person experiencing them. And it can be wrath, right? It can be despair. But it can also be ecstasy and euphoria and bliss. That's the really important thing to remember with the Scorpio moon, is that all of those intense emotions that you have of extreme frustration or despair or wrath, you also have access to their beautiful positive opposites of bliss and euphoria and ecstasy, right? And an understanding of the sublime, right? This word, the sublime, in my opinion, is not used enough. It is one of my favorite words. It is one of my favorite concepts. It's that feeling of balancing on the edge of the cliff and feeling the wind behind you and feeling the wind below you and knowing that you could topple over into the abyss at any moment, but also that you're not going to because you are rooting your feet safely, and yet you're feeling the potential to fly free or to fall into the abyss. It is being on that edge, right? And feeling the sublimity of that moment, right? Being right on the edge of that thrilling, right? Very, very thrilling to your very soul, that type of experience. Scorpio moon can experience, glimpses of the sublime by reading poetry or listening to music or getting to know someone on a very intimate level or going to a concert or even watching a really good movie, right? Those moments of the sublime are available to a Scorpio moon. I mean, they're available to everyone, but my point here is that Scorpio moon is going to be looking for those, going to be cultivating them, and going to be capturing them because those peak experiences are so satisfying, right? And I always feel like the fact that Scorpio moon can really like live those, can really enjoy those, and can really find those peak experiences in like everyday life, that is kind of the gift. That is the other side of the coin, where Scorpio moon is also tending to have to go through these periods of emotional upheaval and emotional purge. And yet, I've really come to understand that a Scorpio moon with these emotional purges, right? This is even if you're having the depths of despair, where you're having to hit rock bottom and, maybe it's curling up in bed and crying. Maybe it is, punching the punching bag because you're so angry, or having to do whatever you need to do to work out your feelings and having to experience them to the fullest and having them overwhelm you and having them overtake you. And, this is almost a constant experience in life where, I mean, your own emotional patterns will be personal to you, but perhaps you have a monthly pattern of emotions. Perhaps it's even fluctuates throughout the day. Perhaps it's more random for you, right? It's going to be personal, but there's going to be these times where your intense emotions completely overtake you. And when you do have something challenging coming up in life, before you, this is important, right? Before you can really calmly and clearly decide what you're doing, in life, when things stop, when, shit hits the fan and you have to figure out what you're doing, and especially if something catches you off guard, and especially if you're not particularly agile in responding to a crisis immediately, is because you're going to have all of these emotions welling up inside of you, and you could get analysis paralysis, or you could just be overwhelmed with fear or grief or despair or rage or frustration or just abject confusion, and you'd be experiencing these emotions to their fullest. And the best thing, in my opinion, for a Scorpio moon to do is experience these emotions fully, and then purge them out. You gotta feel them in order to release them, and then you let them go. And so crying, yelling, writing, running, beating a punching bag, right? Screaming into the pillow. You gotta find the thing that helps you release your emotions. And you can think about, you want to look at, the house placement and the sign placement, right? If you're Scorpio moon, look at what house it's in. If you have Scorpio moon in the first house, for example, perhaps getting your body involved will help you release that energy, right? Or if you have Mars involved somehow, if you have Aries energy in your chart, getting your body involved and really, really working out in an athletic way. Even if you don't normally consider yourself athletic, this might even be more important for you to try, right? Because maybe you're not aware of how much moving your body, going for a run or punching a punching bag, maybe you're not even aware of how much that can actually help you release your emotions, right? So give it a try if you've never tried that before. If you have air energy involved, really sitting down and journaling or talking to someone, thinking through and analyzing all of your thoughts and coming into that understanding can be a way of helping you release your emotions, right? So for me, Gemini moon in the 8th, I have to be able to understand what I'm feeling. I need to be able to explain it and articulate it. And it does help if I have someone to talk that through with, but if I can't, I'll talk to myself. I'll record it on my phone, or I'll write it down and, light the paper on fire, that kind of thing. So you need to figure out what it is for you that helps you purge those emotions. But while you're going through that process, don't be afraid of the intensity of your own emotions. You have to fully feel them and experience them, and understand that you are here on this earth to fully experience your feelings. You're not here to repress your feelings. You're here to fully experience them, and especially with the Scorpio moon, you're here to experience them and then release them. And then, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, you'll be born anew over and over and over and over again. There is an element here of being in a constant state of emotional transformation. So the amount of emotional energy that you guys can chew through in a lifetime or even just in a day is crazy. And it might be kind of weird for you to think about if you've never explored this before, but you might be surprised to find out how many, if you could somehow quantify emotions, right? If you could somehow put a number to that, you would be amazed to find how much more emotional energy you experience in a single day than certain other people do, perhaps in an entire month or even in an entire year. Not everyone is experiencing these crazy, overwhelming, intense waves of outrageous emotion on a regular basis. So I guess just to add off here, I don't want this to sound like a curse because it's certainly not. It's certainly not. And especially, the longer you've lived with this placement, the longer you've been in this body, living with this energy, the more you're going to learn to master it. And one of the best things you can do is actually learn to purge your emotions ultra fast. And I mean, it could be 2 seconds, 5 seconds, right? You could have an overwhelming emotion come up on you and you could just, right? Maybe take 5 deep breaths. And in that deep breathing, that can be enough to feel and release those emotions. So the whole process that you might go through when you're, I guess, newer to your emotional journey, right? You might have to go through days or even weeks of emotional release, but it doesn't have to, if you don't enjoy that experience, if you don't want to spend so much time kind of living in the extremes of emotion, with practice and with consciousness and with understanding of your own processes, right? You can absolutely learn to purge your emotions. Like I am not kidding when I say within 5 seconds, right? 5 seconds. That's all it takes to release that energy once you get good at it. And it just comes with practice and knowing yourself. And then there is so much potential for Scorpio moon to actually exist in that eye of the hurricane, right? The eye of the hurricane. And that's when something really cool begins to happen, when you realize that just because you feel things so intensely, that doesn't mean that you are your emotions, right? You are not your emotions, just like you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts and your emotions are both just sensory information that are showing up in your awareness, right? Your feelings are everywhere. Sometimes they feel like they might even be becoming you, right? We can really identify with our own emotions, and then we can say, I am what I feel, right? Sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes we say, I am what I feel. But when you really explore your own awareness and your own consciousness, you do begin to understand that your awareness is separate from your emotions, and your emotions are kind of like noise, or perhaps like drops of rain, splashes of water that hit you. You can feel your emotions, you sense your emotions, they're absolutely real, but they are just something that you are sensing, something that you are experiencing, something that is running through your system. They aren't exactly you, right? They're not exactly you. And when you make that distinction between your awareness and the emotions that you are sensing that come up in your awareness, right? The emotions that arise in your awareness, when you make that distinction, then you become the surfer of your emotions, right? And then you can choose to spend more and more time as the eye of the hurricane, right? The eye of the hurricane. So I'm going to leave you guys there. I got lots of links down below. You can check me out, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.